Hello again, friends. We're going to try a new format with In Other News, where perhaps I do it more than just once a week and talk to you for 20 to 30 minutes at a time about other interesting stories. How about this? How about every time I see a really fascinating story that intrigues me that no one in America knows about, I just instantaneously do an In Other News on the spot. What do you think about that? Well, let's watch it first, then comment below and tell me what you think. Here's what I got going on that fascinates me in other news right now. This is October 5th. Vladimir Putin of Russia, Prime Minister Putin, came out a couple days ago and said something to the effect, it's still kind of nebulous, it's kind of out there, but he said something to the effect of, we in Russia would like to start forming up a kind of customs union, almost like a trade bloc, but more like an EU with ex-Soviet states. Whoa! Now, that, of course, is not going to make anybody's radar in America because we've already forgotten all about the Cold War and Soviet states and trade and anything else happening outside of our borders. But it's actually quite important, and that's why I wanted to talk about it in other news. Again, it's just tentative. The dude's just talking about it. But I'm telling you, this is one to pay attention to. First off, what exactly is he perhaps suggesting? Well, he called it, he wants to start forming a Eurasian Union. I don't even know what exactly that means, but the tentative plans so far are Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan basically forming something like NAFTA, perhaps soon, and maybe more like the EU just after that. Now, okay, back it up. Why those two countries? Kazakhstan and Belarus, very strong allies of Russia. Belarus, it's been toyed with that it's going to just be reabsorbed by Russia. I don't even know why it became a separate country anyway. I mean, Belarus is like Little Russia, I think is the name of it. So, not surprising that it's these two. And I can tell you right from the get-go, a lot of other ex-Soviet states, and again, these are when we say ex-Soviet states, they used to be part of the USSR, a singular political entity. When the USSR dissolved in 1991, it became 15 independent states. And actually, for a while, just after it went from USSR to Russia and 14 other sovereign states, they had something called the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States, wherein they tried to coordinate economic policy and a couple other things, actually mainly moving nuclear weapons and nuclear stockpiles back from the 14 countries to Mother Russia. So they had this CIS thing that was around for a while. It never really amounted to much. It certainly didn't amount to anything economically. And it sounds like that maybe that's what Vladimir Putin is re-proposing, that all of us that used to be the Soviet Union, we should work together more in some sort of EU-ish type Eurasian Union. But I can assure you, many of the former Soviet states will have nothing to do with it. Places like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they despise the Soviets. They despise the Russians. Many people in those countries still do. So they're not going to jump back into any sort of union with Mother Russia. The other countries, though, I'm not so sure. Central Asian countries might. Obviously, Kazakhstan has probably been prepped for this and is probably going to be on board for it. Ukraine is the one that'll be an interesting one. Already, Ukraine has been one of those countries that when so many other countries in Eastern Europe, like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, jumped into the arms of the West as soon as the USSR dissolved in 1991, they became part of NATO, became part of the EU, became very Western. Ukraine has been trying to do that, but it's evenly split. Half the country wants to be pro-EU, pro-Western, pro-NATO. The other half actually kind of wants to be pro-Russia and probably would vote to go into some sort of customs union with Russia. And that's kind of why I think this is a bigger, more important story, just talking about Ukraine for a second, because this is the big deal that's going on here. Russia is reasserting, or attempting to reassert influence in its former Soviet republics. It's been kind of slowly doing this over the course of the last decade as Vladimir Putin has made Russia back into a world power and they got powerful again and started to flex their muscles. But this is something more than just saying, we're Russia and we're going to force this upon you. No. They're being much more savvy and saying, no, we want to do it economically and let's all help each other get richer. And here's why I think it's significant. The Central Asian states will probably be on board for this. Because they already do a whole bunch of business with Russia. Belarus, of course, will jump in on board with it too. And it's telling that Putin is doing this because he's suggesting, in my mind, that he's looking towards an not EU alternative for them, for Russia, but for Asia as a whole. And I think he's on to something. For those of you that have taken my class, you know about the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You already know there's kind of a grouping with Russia and China over there. Growing bonds economically and militarily, perhaps a little bit too, and maybe politically a little bit too. And so Putin's suggesting, well, here's something else. Not only do we already, or we're already encouraging ties and doing more trade with China and other places in the East, in Eastern Asia, Eurasia, we're going to form up a customs union bloc with Central Asia and perhaps some of Eastern Europe. So again, here's what I get excited about. Putin is suggesting, I think openly, that Russia's future lies in the East, not with the West. Not a judgment call on my part. I'm not making fun of Western Europe or the United States or Team West or any of that. I'm saying that's what Putin is kind of suggesting is, hey, we would probably, it would behoove us in Russia and you guys in Central Asia and maybe some of you guys in Eastern Europe to start getting on board with us. We're a growing entity, and so is China. Start thinking Asian, not European. See what I'm talking about here? See why I get excited about it? Now, why would all this be happening right now? Well, a couple of other news stories, in other news, feed into this. And that is that Russia is at the end of like an 18-year process of trying to get into the WTO, the World Trade Organization. They've been trying for like 2 decades to get into this. And I think that Putin is pretty much saying, who cares anymore? Who cares about the World Trade Organization? Well, let's focus on Eurasian trade. Let's focus on SCO trade. Let's focus on Russia and all of its satellites trade. That is not necessarily a bad approach. That's one thing that's also going on. I think that Russia's kind of almost getting ready to get into the World Trade Organization, but who knows? There's always been this frictional relationship. I mean, it's taken 20 years for them to get in, and they're not in yet. Maybe they're going to give up on that now, too. What else is going on that was in other news? Vladimir Putin just announced that he will be running for president again. He will win. He now has the prospect of being Russia's president for 12 more years starting next year. Now do you see why I'm getting excited? Here's a guy who is likely to be in charge of Russia for the next decade plus before he even gets back into office, suggesting, you know what? Everybody should not really pay attention to the EU that much. Let's form a Eurasian EU. Let's get it going on over here on the other side of Eurasia where the real action is. This is significant. It's significant. It's one of the reasons why Team West, a lot of the European leaders, and particularly the United States, don't like Putin. I think they know that he has it in his head that Russia's future is East, not West. And it's not going to spell a whole lot of good times for Western Europe or the U.S. when Russia focuses much more of its energy on looking to the other side of Eurasia. And other stories that have been in the news, which again feed into this, that just in the last month, Russia has met with Kim Jong-il on opening trade with North Korea. Russia has met with China and with South Korea and with North Korea about different pipeline activities that are going on over there. To me, it's significant. They're looking east. And they're looking east in a big way. And Putin coming out with this whole customs union, Eurasian union, is very overtly saying, that we know where our future is, and it ain't over there kissing the ass of the West with the EU. It's looking east where the new action is. I should also add, comma, why else would this be happening right now? I don't know, because the EU's in trouble. The Eurozone is on the brink of collapse. All of the stuff that we talked about in class and on this website about the Greek debt and the euro falling in value and Germany have to bailing everybody out and the Germans getting pissed off about bailing everybody out. All of that's going on in the background of this too. So I think Putin, again, is being very clever, saying, the West is weak. The EU is not in great shape. China's strong. China rich. All these other economies over on the other side of Asia are rich, getting richer. That's where we should be focusing. Again, like him, hate him, it doesn't matter to me. He's looking out for the best interest of Russia. And again, he's putting forward this statement. For the next 10 years, this guy who's going to be in charge of Russia, I think, is openly saying, Russia's future, East, not West. And that's what's going on in other news with just that one story. Peace.